When Emily Carter left her apartment that cold November morning, she wasn't thinking about life-changing moments. She wasn't expecting to meet anyone special, or to have her path rewritten by a single decision. She was just going about her usual routine, clutching her thermos of coffee and wrapping her scarf tighter against the brisk air of Chicago. Emily was 29, a graphic designer working for a mid-sized firm. Life had been steady but unremarkable. Days filled with office deadlines, late nights designing ads, weekends spent with her best friend Melissa, and long phone calls with her mother in Indiana. She wasn't unhappy, but she wasn't exactly fulfilled either. Lately, she had been questioning where she was headed. Her career was stable, but her heart felt stuck in neutral. Relationships came and went, never quite clicking, never quite growing into something lasting. She felt like she was waiting for something to shift, though she didn't know what. That morning, the world was gray. Clouds hung low, the wind carried the sharp bite of winter, and Emily moved quickly along the sidewalk, eager to catch the train. As she passed the corner bakery, she noticed a man sitting on the bench outside, hunched over with his hands tucked into the sleeves of his worn jacket. He looked older, maybe in his late 50s or early 60s, with graying hair peeking out from under a knit cap. He wasn't asking for money, but there was a quiet weariness in the way he sat, as though the weight of the world pressed on his shoulders. Emily hesitated, glancing at the time on her phone. She had only a few minutes before the train arrived. Normally, she might have walked on. She had deadlines, meetings, a busy day ahead. But something about the man made her pause. She remembered her mother's words. Kindness doesn't have to be grand, Emily. Sometimes the smallest gesture changes everything. Without thinking too hard, Emily ducked into the bakery, bought 2 coffees and a bagel sandwich, and stepped back outside. She handed them to the man. Here, she said softly. It's freezing. This might help a little. The man looked up, startled. His eyes, pale blue and tired, widened with a mix of surprise and gratitude. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough, as if unused to kindness. Of course, Emily said, managing a small smile. Take it, please. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he accepted the coffee and sandwich. Thank you, he murmured. You don't know how much this means. Emily didn't stay long. She wished him well, offered a kind smile, and hurried toward the train. It felt like nothing, a small kindness, the kind her mother always encouraged. She didn't expect to think about it again. But she did. That night, lying in bed, she kept picturing the man's eyes. There had been a depth there, a story untold. Something about his gratitude lingered in her chest, warming her even more than the thick quilt around her. The next morning, she passed the bakery again. The man was still there, sitting in the same spot. This time, he looked a little less slouched, a little more alert. Emily stopped, unsure whether to approach. But when he caught sight of her, his face brightened just slightly, and she found herself walking over. Morning, she said. Morning, he replied. He cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly. I didn't get your name yesterday. Emily, she said. And you? Robert, he said. Robert Hayes. They talked briefly. She learned that Robert had once worked construction, but after an injury and a series of setbacks, he had lost his job, then his apartment. Life had unraveled quickly, as it sometimes does, and he had been trying to piece it together ever since. He wasn't a beggar by choice, he explained, but he had fallen into a hole that felt impossible to climb out of. Emily felt her heart twist as she listened. She couldn't solve his problems, but she could listen. She could show him that someone cared. And so, what began as one small act of kindness grew into something more. Every morning after that, Emily brought him a coffee and a sandwich. Sometimes she sat with him for a few minutes before catching her train. They talked about little things at first, the weather, the city, the people passing by. Then, slowly, the conversations deepened. Robert told her about his late wife, about his daughter who lived in another state but with whom he had lost touch. He told her about the construction sites he used to work on, the buildings he had helped raise. Emily told him about her design projects, her dreams of illustrating children's books, her struggles with self-doubt. Days turned into weeks. What had begun as a fleeting moment of compassion became a daily ritual. Emily found herself looking forward to those conversations, to the warmth in Robert's voice when he greeted her each morning. He had a way of seeing the world differently, through the lens of someone who had lost much but still managed to find bits of beauty in the simplest things. One day, after a particularly stressful day at work, Emily sat with Robert longer than usual. She vented about a difficult client and her boss's impossible expectations. Robert listened quietly, nodding. When she finished, he smiled gently. "You know, Emily," he said, "life has a way of piling weight on our shoulders. But the trick isn't to fight the load. It's to learn where to set it down now and then. You can't carry everything all the time." His words struck her. They were simple, yet profound. She realized she had been carrying not just her work stress, but years of pressure. Expectations from her family, failed relationships, doubts about her future. She had been so focused on pushing forward that she hadn't allowed herself to breathe. That night she cried, not from sadness, but from a release she hadn't known she needed. Over time, Robert's presence became more than just a comfort. He became a mirror, showing Emily parts of herself she had forgotten. The compassionate girl who once dreamed of making art that inspired others, the woman who longed for connection, the human being who believed kindness could shift the world. Then came the day everything shifted for Robert too. Emily had been saving a portion of her paycheck for months, not sure what for. One morning, she arrived at the bakery bench with more than just coffee. She handed Robert an envelope. "What's this?" he asked, frowning in confusion. "Just open it," Emily urged. Inside was enough money for a few weeks at a small room-for-rent place she had found, along with the number of a job program that helped people like him rebuild their lives. Robert's hands shook as he looked at her, his eyes filling with tears. "Emily, I can't accept this. You've already done so much." "Yes, you can," she said firmly. "Everyone deserves a chance to start again. You gave me more than you know. You reminded me what matters. Let me do this for you." Robert's voice broke. "You don't understand. People walk past me every day like I'm invisible. But you saw me. You reminded me I'm still human. That's something I thought I lost. How do I ever thank you for that?" Emily squeezed his hand. "By taking the chance. By believing in yourself again." And he did. Slowly but surely. With her support, Robert moved into the small rented room. He went to the job program, took classes, and eventually found steady work as a handyman. He wasn't the man on the bench anymore. He was rebuilding, one step at a time.